this is probably one of the best deals I've ever found. Let's go ahead and get into it. The cheapest SIG I've ever found in my life right here, and I did not hesitate to buy this thing once I figured out what it actually was. And today I'm going to tell you the pros and cons as I see it. I'm going to tell you a little bit of how this pistol came to be, and at the end I'm going to tell you how much I paid for it. I kind of had in my mind, like, you know, you guys don't Google it and just say what you think it's worth, and then at the end kind of make an edit and be like, oh, holy crap, I can't believe it's that low, or, you know, I don't think it's worth that anyways, you know, whatever. Because when it comes to SIG, they are typically more expensive. Either way, if you like this type of content, reviews on rifles, pistols, concealed carry, honest gun reviews, trusted gun reviews, right here, man, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit your notifications so you never miss a video from me. So the way this pistol comes about is kind of interesting because, you know, the German police at the time are carrying the Walther PP, which has been around since 1929. And so it's also chambered in 32 ACP, which for stopping power and penetration purposes isn't going to do a good job. It's not going to do nearly the job that 9mm will. Now, I had read that the massacre at the Olympics in Munich played a role in this whole thing as well. The German military actually has the P1 at the time, which is just an alloy version of the World War II P38. So Walther says, hey, you need a 9mm with the decocker? We got you. And it's a single stack. They cut the barrel a little bit, they put a decocker on it, boom, here you go. It did get a designation as the P4, but it wasn't what the West German police were looking for. So it came down to three companies: SIG, Walther, H&K. H&K has the P7. Walther has the newly redesigned P5, which kind of still uses the action of the P38, but it looks much different than the P38 in appearances. All three of which would be accepted, but this being the most popular option. It does, by the way, have a decocker, which is one of the requirements that the West German police wanted. Double to single action there. We will talk about that while looking a hammer back here a little bit, but we're going to try the double action. It's got a 24-pound mainspring in it, so yeah, I don't expect to hit anything. Oh, hey, that wasn't too bad. That's actually pretty good. Take your time with it. Wow. Holy crap. Yeah, those the top shots on that target are the double action, which is pretty crazy. Now, granted, I'm in a controlled environment, nobody's shooting back at me, there's no suspect, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit different if you were to have to use this in self-defense or as a police officer in West Germany at the time, but still, that's not too bad. It is super heavy though. And JP Sauer came into this whole thing because the Swiss had some pretty strict export rules on military firearms, so that's how it became Sig Sauer. And they used this gun from, oh man, you know, the late 70s all the way up until, yeah, the early 2000s, when they got rid of this for the H&K P8. And so you'll notice with those markings right there, 5 of 80. So May of 1980 is when this one was actually approved. This is the police department it went to. And there's the P6 designation. You have 371, which is the last 3 of the serial number on the barrel right there and on the frame of the gun. You also have a couple proof marks right there right there under the dust cover. So what is this gun? It's basically a slightly modified version of the 225, right? You have a single stack gun, you have serrations, of course, back here in the rear, and just like most pistols of the day, there's very little to no contrast in the sights. Low profile. It does have, of course, the decocker, which was important. Bakelite style grips here, and they actually, you know, SIG did make a 225A1 that they came out with in like 2015, and none of those parts will fit in a 225 or a P6. Magazine release right there. It's serrated, 8 rounds, single stack magazine, and those magazines just pop right out of the gun. You got a little bit of serration right there on the front, and then some checkering on the back strap there as well. Slide stop right there. Of course, you can drop it just like that. Breakdown of the gun, slide it forward, boom. They use like a hollow metal guide rod here, so that's one of the upgrades you can do. You can do a solid one if you want to add a little bit more weight to the front of the gun, might keep the muzzle down just a little bit more too. You actually have your firing pin block right there, and then there's the internals. So you got full length rails right there, and pretty simple design overall. Now you may have already noticed something, maybe you haven't, but that hammer. See that little spur right there? Before I started doing research, I didn't know what to think. You know, my first guess is a lanyard loop that's in a really bad location, but that doesn't make much sense. Come to find out, they made the hammer like this to essentially be a weak point on the gun. So if this gun is dropped so many times and that breaks off, then you know you have a potential issue with the firing pin. So that was their indicator for a pistol that's been dropped one too many times. So I was like, well, you know, why are they having so many issues dropping the guns? Well, they were using outdated holsters from World War II. And so they get these new designed holsters that apparently are not great when they first came out, and a lot of police officers were actually dropping the pistols, or they would fall out of those holsters while they were training or on the job or whatever, and that would lead to the pistol falling out of the holster, boom, breaking off. So there you go. That's why it's got that weird, not really spur, but just weird cutout in the hammer back there. Putting it back together, boom, simple, no need to pull the trigger or anything like that. Speaking of the trigger, and that wind feels nice.
Yes, it does.
It's like 110 out here with the heat index. Brutal. Man, it's limited in capacity, but it's got a nice, relatively short well, not really a short reset. I kind of take that back, but it's manageable. It's not crazy. So as you can see, I was pretty stoked with how that actually turned out, man. With the double action, I don't shoot double action that well. Actually, I was like super shocked when we shot that Korth recently, and I was like, dude, this is amazing, you know, because like I said, typically double action, I am not the best with. You know, if you see me ever with a double action gun, and I'm kind of like this, and I'm taking a shot, boom, boom, and then I do like this and don't even say anything, yeah, you know I'm like, okay, screw this, I'm just going to single action. But it is heavy, right? And I'm not saying that I wouldn't change it, and that is something I want to talk about, some of the upgrades you can do. But it does have a heavy double action in that gun. And so that is a design that is on purpose, right? So I did shoot a little bit compared to my 229 Legion. What a nice shooting gun. And an expensive gun. Which is still one of the most beautiful guns I own. And I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a size reference here to the 229. They're really similar. Obviously the 229 is much newer, but they are very similar. Put them on their backs. Check that out. If we look at the weight, zero it out here. There we go. All zeroed out. Look at the weight. Hey, let's look at the weight of the PP first. Let's see how much that weighed. 1 pound, 8 ounces right there. These are unloaded weights, of course. P6, 1 pound, 12 ounces right there. Let's look at the 229. 1 pound, 15 ounces, right? So it's pretty heavy, but 229 almost doubles the capacity of the P6. Hell, just for giggles there, let's see what the P38 is. 2 pounds, 1 ounce. Yeah, she's a heavy girl. But again, on the P1, they use an alloy frame, which lightens it up. If you look at, let's just say, a modern carry gun, something like this Shadow, which has 2 more rounds than the P6, or 1 pounds, 1 ounce, right? So obviously different designs, different errors, polymer frame, you know, all of that. So I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, this thing is a heavy piece of junk. But I am saying, you know, just to kind of show the advancements from something like a P38 or even a Walther PP to something like the P6. All in all, the P6, man, is the cheapest gun I have ever found. And any of the West German SIGs are typically really expensive. And so I looked up the price of this gun. Here is the double action up close, by the way. Whew. Here's the single action, though. Reset. Boom. Little bit of take up right there before you actually get to the wall to shoot it again. All in all, a very good shooter for what it is. And I'm kind of used to shooting those very little contrast sights. You know, shooting all my World War II guns, none of them have good sights at all. So it just kind of is what it is. Upgrades to the gun. You can, of course, lighten this mainspring significantly. You can upgrade the sights, and again, all your P225 parts will work with the P6, not the 225A1. You can again change that guide rod if you want to. You can go with a reduced reach trigger, which will shave most of this off. SIG still does this, you know, to this day actually. With the reduced reach, you can do the short reset trigger. So there's a lot you can actually do here to make this into a viable concealed carry option. It's going to be a little bit heavier and a little bit lighter as far as the round count, but if you like double to single action guns, concealed carry guns, this can be a really fantastic option. And some of y'all have asked me for more DA to SA reviews, so here you go. Pros, the price. How much did I pay for this gun? I hope that you put your guesses in already, but I paid $350 for this gun. When I looked them up through various places that are selling them, $675, $700, $1,000 is some of the going rates that I've seen on these guns, which is insane. That's like 225A1 prices, which those were fairly expensive as well. So 350 bucks, that's a freaking steal. I like the trigger in it. I think it's got a decent trigger for what it is. And it feels really good in the hand, right? It's not the lightest or anything like that, but for what they needed at the time, this thing almost feels like a full-size gun to me personally. And when you're coming from something like the PP, I can only imagine those police departments were like, dude, this is light years better, the P6 anyways, than something like the PP. These things are small and they will slide bite you constantly, right? So I didn't have that issue at all with this gun, even though it doesn't have an extended beaver tail like some of your modern guns. It still did not bite my hand at all, and it's super comfortable in the hand. So I think all in all, man, this is a fantastic piece, and it's a piece of history. Now, unfortunately, one of the cons is it's got that import mark. So in the 2000s, you know, there was a few places importing these. Century International was the primary importer, right? But they changed it to CAI instead of CIA because they didn't want people to think that these were old CIA surplus guns, which is, again, kind of funny. But, you know, coming from somebody that collects World War II guns, and import marks are like like just drop the value, you know, I understand, but again, I hate that they have to go through and do that crap, because it doesn't ruin the gun. Like, all of these guns have import marks, but I just don't like it being there, right? I like it as original as possible. Another con, obviously, that double action trigger is shootable, but it's still just way too heavy. I understand why they did it, but at the same time, not a fan. You know, I was thinking that this hammer design was an issue, but I think it's more so they didn't want the hammer to have been dropped, breaking the firing pin, and there being hidden damage on the inside of here, and then a police officer has to use this unknowingly, having a defective pistol that won't work in the first place. So I kind of understand why they did that, but you do create a weak point on the gun itself. And so I think better holsters actually mitigated a lot of that issue with these guns being dropped. Overall, a fantastic gun, cool piece of history, a little Cold War action here, and I'm proud to have it. Now, if you like this type of content, maybe you'll like one of these videos up in here or over here, World War II content, and some updated modern concealed carry guns as well. Love to have you check those things out. If you like what I do, consider subscribing, or you can join the channel. I'll leave a link down below. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.